Hello world, my name is Cameron Oley, a self-considered professional nerd, and today I wanted to share with you my main tips for getting started with coding and computer science. Let's jump right into it. My first tip is to find your niche and specifically pinpoint exactly what you want to do with computer science. Do you want to create websites for people? Would you like to get involved with algorithm searching and sorting kind of math concepts? Are you interested in developing iOS applications or specifically gaming, virtual reality, social good? There are intersection points at every avenue of computer science. Even if you're interested in animation, computer science is a great way to start with that. So my first tip is to pinpoint exactly what your interests are in computer science. My second piece of advice is to start researching the programs, softwares, and coding tutorials that are required for you to build upon that interest, that specialty that you're interested in. For example, for iOS applications, you're going to use something called Swift and Xcode, which I have some tutorials about actually on my channel if you'll want to check them out. And with that, a way that you can find other resources / the software that I mentioned is honestly say how to get started creating websites. And a bunch of information should pop up on the internet. So my kind of like a tip and a half, like tip 2.5, is to become a professional Googler. Now by that I mean don't be afraid to honestly just research everything. Search and sort through all of the different articles on Medium, on Stack Overflow, on GitHub. I know Codecademy has a lot of really great tutorials, and so with that, don't be afraid to use Google as a resource because I personally would not survive without it. So that leads me into tip 3, is through your Google research, try to follow some tutorials. Specifically, I think YouTube tutorials are really helpful because they're really detailed and they can start from all sorts of levels. If you aren't new to coding, for example, you could find a tutorial that doesn't go over the coding concepts of computer science in that resource, but it'll still go through the steps of creating a cool project. Also, YouTube tutorials, as you might have seen if you've done some prior coding with them, is that they have a lot of really cool, simple projects that you can build at start and then kind of grow from there. And so I think that personally I would not nearly survive without YouTube or Google. They're both just such incredible resources. So with that, go ahead and find a YouTube tutorial you're interested in and try to build a really simple project about what you're passionate about. This could be literally a website full of pictures of a sad looking frog.
Wait. This has failed already. Yeah, boy!
This is Frank. And that leads into my next tip, is after you follow a couple different tutorials that you feel like you're a little bit comfortable with the coding languages and the tools that you're using, start building a bunch of side projects about what you're interested in. And now make sure that these side projects aren't too crazy complicated. For example, if you're getting started with the mobile development, jumping and trying to recreate Instagram might be a little bit overwhelming at first. And so by side projects, I mean try to see if you can teach yourself one new feature without using a tutorial. This gives you a great opportunity to practice what you've already learned. Now my last tip is kind of goes hand in hand with testing things and being out on your own, especially in computer science, and that is to embrace your errors. You're going to encounter way more errors than you do times that your code is going to succeed on the first try. Now, this is sort of just a part of computer science, and it can be really discouraging at first, especially if you haven't usually run into this sort of problem. Something that always kind of dismayed me in STEM fields is if you get something wrong along the way of a math question, then the whole answer is going to be wrong. And that can be really heartbreaking because like in terms of a test, you can get a whole bunch of points off even if you do every step right if you just made a little miscalculation. However, computer science has a really great culture, I think, of embracing our errors because we simply run into so many that it'd be impossible, or it's nearly impossible, to get something working on the first try. And so that's why I think that the more errors you encounter, the more opportunities you have to learn and grow from them. So my favorite part about coding is if you have an error for, let's say, you're working on this project for 3 weeks, you get to the end and you're like, none of this works, and you're like, what in the world? And then you spend so much time trying to figure it out, and it definitely is frustrating and a little bit overwhelming along the way, but you find out, oh, I just spelled something wrong. And as frustrating and like, oh man, as that is, It's so satisfying because then you get to see all of your work actually succeed, and that's such a great feeling. I think that there's nothing better than that. And so errors are honestly a really fun part of coding, and I encourage you to make as many mistakes as you possibly can because you're only going to learn and grow better from it. And then the next time you encounter one, you're going to know how to deal with it. So those are my 5 biggest tips, I believe, for jumping into computer science and coding. And with that, I recommend, get started with something simple, whether it's, once again, like an app full of cat pictures or creating a positive quotes generator. Just getting started is the hardest part of computer science, and that's why, if you're interested, let me know what you think is the scariest about computer science, and I'll see if I can try to answer some of those questions, knock over some of the misconceptions about STEM and computer science, because truly it's such a superpower and can be used for so many different things that we would love to have you in the coding community. So have a great rest of your day and happy hacking!